Have you ever wondered why most people think kindness is easy, but somehow it never truly transforms their lives? Imagine this: every time you smile, every time you offer help, every time you speak gently, there's an invisible weight on your heart. And here's the shocking truth. True kindness isn't warm and fuzzy. It's uncomfortable. It challenges you. It pushes you beyond your comfort zone in ways you might never admit out loud. You see, society has sold us a lie. We've been taught that being kind is about being nice, about pleasing people, about avoiding conflict. But real kindness asks something of you. It asks for courage. It asks for sacrifice. It asks for honesty when it hurts. It demands that you act even when it's inconvenient, even when it goes unnoticed, even when it could cost you something you deeply value. And yet that is the soil where extraordinary impact grows. Think about the last time someone truly helped you, not because it was convenient for them, but because they saw your struggle and chose action over comfort. That feeling stays with you, doesn't it? That sense of being seen, of being acknowledged in your humanity, creates ripples that can never be erased. Now imagine if every one of us embraced this kind of discomfort, if we didn't shrink from the hard conversations, from the moments when we had to challenge ourselves to be genuinely present. The world wouldn't just change, it would transform. And the first step is recognizing that your instinct for comfort is not your friend when it comes to real kindness. Most people recoil from this discomfort. They water down their intentions. They smile when they should confront. They nod when they should challenge. They stay silent when they should speak. And then they wonder why their relationships, their influence, their sense of purpose feels shallow. True kindness is not a soft power. It is a hard edge, forged in the fire of integrity, courage, and relentless empathy. It requires you to step into situations where outcomes are uncertain, where your own biases and fears are exposed, where you might be misunderstood, criticized, even rejected. But here's the thing. When you choose that path, when you embrace the discomfort, you discover something profound. You realize that kindness is not a transaction, a favor, or a way to gain approval. It is a declaration of who you are. It is the truest measure of your strength. And today I want to take you on a journey from understanding kindness as something easy and polite to something raw, powerful, and life-changing. Because the moment you stop avoiding discomfort and start leaning into it, everything changes. And the first story I want to share will challenge everything you think you know about what it means to be truly kind. Let me tell you a story. There was a moment in someone's life when they faced a choice that would define them, not in grand gestures, not in speeches or awards, but in a small, painful decision that tested their humanity. They were in a room filled with people who could easily ignore suffering, who could walk past the uncomfortable truth without blinking. And yet something inside them stirred, a whisper, a pull, a recognition that doing nothing was not an option. You see, true kindness often arrives disguised as risk. It asks you to stand alone, to speak truth when silence is safer, to act when action could make you vulnerable. Most people step back. They tell themselves, it's not my problem, or someone else will handle it, or I don't have time. But the moment they choose discomfort, the moment they lean into that invisible tension, that is when impact begins. In that room, the choice was simple in theory, but almost impossible in practice. It required patience, courage, and a willingness to feel every ounce of fear, doubt, and judgment that comes with stepping forward. It wasn't a one-time act. It was repeated over and over in countless small decisions where no one was watching, where success wasn't guaranteed, and where criticism was inevitable. And yet, with each choice, the weight of discomfort became the weight of purpose. Each time they acted, the world around them shifted just a little, sometimes imperceptibly, sometimes in ways that changed someone's life forever. This is the paradox of true kindness. The very things that make it uncomfortable are the very things that make it transformative. Comfort is seductive. It lulls you into a false sense of security, telling you that being passive is safe, that ignoring pain is practical, that staying neutral is wise. But comfort never changes anyone. Comfort never inspires loyalty, trust, or respect. True kindness, the kind that lasts, the kind that echoes, is born in tension. It's born in moments when you know you might fail, when you might be judged, when you might even be hurt, and still you act. Think about the people in your life who have done this for you, who stepped into their own fear, into their own discomfort, to show up when it mattered most. That's what makes them unforgettable. That's what makes them powerful. And here's the challenge: most of us aren't thinking in terms of legacy or transformation. We're thinking about convenience, approval, and avoiding awkwardness. If you want to be truly kind, you have to redefine what courage looks like in your own life. You have to see discomfort not as a warning, but as a signal that you're on the right path. Because once you start leaning into discomfort, once you start acting when it's hard, you'll realize that kindness isn't soft, it's unstoppable. And in the next story, you'll see just how far this principle can take someone, and how the smallest acts of hard kindness can create consequences no one could have predicted. Now, imagine a situation where doing the right thing felt impossible. A colleague, a friend, even a stranger, someone in desperate need. But stepping in could cost you your reputation, your comfort, maybe even your position. Most people freeze in that moment. Most people rationalize away their responsibility. It's not my place. Someone else will handle it. It's easier to stay quiet. But the reality is this kindness is never easy. Real kindness tests you. It forces you to confront your fears, your ego, and your assumptions about what's convenient. And the moment you choose to act anyway, the moment you let discomfort guide you instead of fear, something extraordinary happens. You become a catalyst. You shift the energy in the room. You change the trajectory of lives. Let me break it down further. True kindness doesn't just happen in big cinematic moments. Often it's invisible. It's the words you say when no one is listening, the support you give when no recognition is coming, the courage you show when no one else dares. That's the discomfort I'm talking about. It's not the applause or the gratitude. It's the inner friction, the unease that comes from knowing the stakes are high and the outcome uncertain. And yet those small, hard acts over and over accumulate into something unstoppable. They ripple, they inspire, they transform. Think about it this way. Every time you choose comfort over courage, every time you choose silence over speaking the truth, you diminish your own power. You tell yourself you're kind, but you're not. You're convenient, you're safe, you're polite. And there's a difference. There's a chasm between being polite and being profoundly human. The world doesn't need more polite people. It needs people willing to step into the friction, to embrace the awkward, the risky, the uncomfortable spaces where real change happens. I want you to picture someone in your life right now who embodies this principle. Someone who didn't flinch even when it was hard. Someone who chose action over ease. The respect, the loyalty, the trust they've earned is not a product of their comfort. It's a product of their courage, of their willingness to act even when it hurt. And here's the takeaway. This is not a story about exceptional people. It's a blueprint. Every single person listening right now has the capacity to do the same. It starts with a choice to lean in, to act, to embrace the discomfort that real kindness demands. And the truth is simple. Discomfort is the birthplace of impact. The moment you stop avoiding it, stop rationalizing it away, you begin to live differently. You begin to influence differently. You begin to lead differently. And the next story I'll share will show you how one small act of courageous kindness didn't just help someone in need. It sparked a chain reaction that no one could have imagined. Let me take you deeper. There was a moment when someone faced an impossible choice. Not a theoretical choice, not a story in a book. This was real life, messy, unpredictable, and painful. They saw suffering that no one else seemed willing to acknowledge. And here's the catch: stepping in wasn't just uncomfortable. It was terrifying. They risked judgment, criticism, and rejection. They risked being misunderstood by everyone around them. Most people would have turned away, rationalized, or made excuses. But in that moment, they made a decision. They chose kindness. And this is the truth about true kindness. It demands bravery. It demands that you act even when it's inconvenient, even when it's risky, even when it could make your life harder. Most people think kindness is a choice made in comfort. I'll help if it's easy. I'll care if it doesn't cost me. But the reality is that kindness grows strongest in the soil of challenge, in the tension of risk, in the friction of fear. Every act that requires courage multiplies its impact. Every uncomfortable moment you face for someone else doesn't just help them. It transforms you. Imagine for a moment the chain reaction this can create. One person acts, one person speaks up, one person chooses courage over comfort, and suddenly others notice, others are inspired, others feel permission to act. Kindness, when it's real, is contagious, but only if it's authentic, only if it's hard, only if it's uncomfortable, because the world is full of easy kindness and smiles, polite gestures, hollow compliments. Those are safe, but they're shallow. True kindness leaves a mark. True kindness changes trajectories. True kindness shakes the foundations of fear and selfishness in ways that polite behavior never can. Here's another truth: the discomfort isn't a barrier, it's a signal. When you feel resistance, when you feel fear, when your ego or pride or laziness wants to push back, that's exactly the moment you're on the verge of impact. That's exactly the moment that can define you, not just for others, but for yourself. The person who leans into that discomfort, who refuses to let fear dictate their choices, becomes unstoppable. They create influence that cannot be bought. They create trust that cannot be faked. They create respect that cannot be taken away. So when you feel that tension, the awkwardness, the anxiety, the risk, lean in. Don't shrink, don't avoid, don't rationalize it away. That is your gateway to true leadership, to deep relationships, to the kind of life that leaves a legacy. And the next story I'll tell will show exactly how one uncomfortable act of kindness not only saved someone, but sparked courage in everyone who witnessed it, changing a community forever. Now let's talk about what most people completely miss about kindness. They think it's about giving when it's convenient, about being gentle when it's safe, about saying the right words when no one is watching. That's not real kindness. Real kindness asks for everything you're afraid to give. It asks for your time when you're busy, your attention when you're distracted, your honesty when it could hurt someone else. It asks you to act when it could be costly, to speak when it could offend, to stand when it could isolate you. And most people stop here. They shrink back. They convince themselves that half measures are enough. But the truth, half measures never leave a mark. Half measures never change lives. Half measures never build trust. Think about it for a moment. How often do we choose comfort over courage? How often do we smile when we should confront, nod when we should challenge, stay silent when we should speak? It's human. We're wired to avoid discomfort. But that avoidance comes at a cost. It erodes our influence. It weakens our connections. It stunts our growth. True kindness The kind that shapes people, the kind that transforms communities, doesn't play it safe. It confronts injustice, it acknowledges pain, it steps into tension. It's messy, it's hard, and it's uncomfortable, and that's exactly why it works. I want you to picture a moment in your own life where someone acted with this kind of courage. Maybe it was a teacher, a mentor, a friend, or even a stranger. They didn't just do the polite thing. They didn't just do the easy thing. They did the right thing, the hard thing. And I guarantee you remember it. That act of real kindness, however small it seemed at the time, likely shaped the trajectory of your life more than any reward or praise ever could. That's the power of discomfort in action. Here's the principle you need to internalize. The measure of kindness is not how comfortable it makes you, it's how brave it makes you. The moment you start embracing the hard, uncomfortable, inconvenient choices, you start building influence that cannot be taken away. You start creating relationships rooted in trust, loyalty, and authenticity. You start shaping a legacy that lasts. And here's the challenge for you right now. Notice the areas in your life where you're choosing ease over impact. Notice the moments when fear, pride, or laziness are dictating your actions. That's your starting point. Lean into it. Step into the discomfort. Take the actions that feel risky, awkward, or inconvenient. That is how true kindness is cultivated. And the next story will show you a real life example of someone who did exactly that, who embraced the discomfort, faced the risk, and changed not only one life, but an entire environment around them. Let's dive even deeper. There was a moment when someone was faced with a choice that could have broken them, or made them unforgettable. They saw someone struggling, someone isolated, someone invisible to the world, and they had two options: walk away and protect themselves, or step in and risk everything. Most people would have chosen comfort. Most people would have told themselves, "It's not my problem," or "I'll help later." But they didn't. They leaned in. They embraced the discomfort. They acted. And that single choice, that courageous act of kindness, started a ripple that no one could have predicted. Here's the thing: kindness is never transactional. It's never about receiving praise, recognition, or gratitude. Real kindness is about commitment to humanity, to truth, to doing what's right even when it costs you. That's why it's uncomfortable. It asks you to step out of your own world, your own convenience, your own ego. It asks you to hold space for someone else's struggle, even when you're tired, even when you're distracted, even when it doesn't benefit you in the slightest. And that is exactly why it is powerful. Think about the people you admire most, the ones who inspire you. Chances are they weren't nice, they were courageous. They didn't avoid discomfort, they leaned into it. They didn't shy away from risk, they accepted it. Every act of true kindness, no matter how small, carries with it an element of vulnerability. And vulnerability, when harnessed with courage, becomes transformative. It's contagious, it inspires others to act. It shifts cultures, communities, and organizations. It builds trust that lasts a lifetime. The reality is, most people never reach this level of kindness because they fear the cost. They fear rejection, criticism, or failure. They fear being misunderstood. But here's the paradox: the moment you embrace that fear, the moment you step into the discomfort, the impact is exponential. You're no longer just helping one person. You're influencing everyone around them. You're shaping norms, expectations, and behaviors. You're demonstrating that kindness is not a weakness, but a form of strength that demands courage, integrity, and relentless empathy. So if you want to be truly influential, if you want to leave a mark that lasts, if you want to transform your world, start by leaning into the moments that feel uncomfortable. Stand up when it's risky. Speak up when it's hard. Act when it's inconvenient. That is where real transformation begins. And the next story I'll share will show exactly how one brave choice of kindness not only changed a life, but sparked a chain reaction that no one could have foreseen. Let's take this a step further. Imagine a situation where helping someone wasn't just inconvenient, it was risky. Maybe it could have hurt your career, damaged relationships, or put you in the spotlight in a way you didn't want. Most people would turn away. Most people would make excuses, rationalize, or hope someone else steps in. But the person I want you to think about did the opposite. They leaned in. They acted. They chose the hard path, the path of true kindness, the path that demanded courage. And that choice, though uncomfortable, changed everything. Here's what most people don't realize: the discomfort you feel when acting with real kindness is not a warning. It's a signal. It's the universe telling you, this is where transformation happens. The moments that scare you, the moments that make your heart race and your stomach churn, are exactly the moments where you have the power to create extraordinary impact. That's the difference between being safe and being significant. Being polite versus being profound. Being convenient versus being courageous. Think about it this way: every time you choose the easy path, every time you avoid confrontation, every time you stay silent when truth is required, you diminish your influence. You teach others that fear and convenience are stronger than integrity and empathy. But when you choose the hard path, when you speak, when you act, when you step into the friction, you create a ripple effect that cannot be measured. One brave act inspires another. One courageous choice sparks another. Before you know it, entire systems, communities, even organizations begin to shift. And here's something powerful: this is not about being heroic or extraordinary. It's about making the choice over and over again to act from a place of integrity and courage. Small acts of uncomfortable kindness accumulate into massive influence. They redefine what's possible. They change how people think, feel, and act. They create trust, loyalty, and respect that can't be faked. So I challenge you to look at your life and ask yourself, where am I choosing comfort over courage? Where am I settling for polite instead of profound? Where am I avoiding the moments that demand real kindness because they are inconvenient or uncomfortable? Those are your opportunities. Those are the moments where you can step in and change the world one act of courage at a time. And in the next story, you'll see how one decision to embrace discomfort didn't just impact a single person. It sparked a movement of kindness that inspired everyone involved. Now let's confront a truth most people avoid. Kindness is not comfortable, not even a little. It's inconvenient, it's risky, it's messy, and yet that is exactly why it's so powerful. True kindness demands you step into situations where outcomes are uncertain, where your motives may be questioned, where your actions could backfire. Most people avoid these moments. Most people shrink. Most people settle for polite gestures, half-hearted smiles, and empty words. But here's the reality. Polite gestures never change anything. Half-hearted attempts never build trust. And empty words never leave a mark. Real kindness, the kind that transforms, the kind that endures, thrives in the uncomfortable space. Think about someone in your life who has influenced you deeply. Chances are they didn't do it by playing it safe. They didn't do it by avoiding risk or discomfort. They leaned in when everyone else walked away. They spoke truth when silence would have been easier. They acted courageously when it could have been easier to stay quiet. That is the kind of kindness that shapes lives, creates loyalty, and inspires action. And here's the secret. Anyone can do it. You don't have to be extraordinary to make an extraordinary impact. You only have to be willing to step into discomfort over and over without guarantees. Here's what you need to understand. Discomfort is not your enemy. It's a signal, a compass pointing you toward the moments where your influence matters most. Every time you feel resistance, every time your instincts scream, don't do this. That's exactly where your courage is needed. That's exactly where kindness is required. And the beautiful part is this: when you embrace discomfort, when you act even when it's hard, the ripple effect is astonishing. One small act of courage inspires another. One bold choice of kindness encourages another. And soon, entire systems, communities, and relationships shift because someone chose the uncomfortable path. But the challenge is clear. Most people will never reach this level of impact because they're unwilling to feel the tension, to face the awkwardness, to risk rejection. That's why the world needs people like you to step up. People willing to embrace discomfort. People willing to act with courage even when it's inconvenient. People willing to redefine what kindness really means. Because the moment you choose courage over comfort, truth over ease, action over indifference, you unlock a power few ever experience. In the next section, I'll show you exactly how one individual's brave choice of uncomfortable kindness didn't just change a life. It created a ripple effect that transformed an entire community, proving that the smallest acts of courage can have the largest impact. Now let's take this to the final stages of understanding. There was a person faced with a moment that could have defined them or destroyed them. They saw someone suffering, someone overlooked, someone in need, and the easy path was clear. Ignore it, stay comfortable, walk away. But they didn't. They leaned into the discomfort. They acted with courage, integrity, and empathy. And what happened next was extraordinary. That single act of true, uncomfortable kindness didn't just help one person. It sparked a chain reaction. Others saw, others learned, others were inspired to act. One brave choice created a ripple that touched lives no one could have predicted. Here's the lesson. Real kindness is not measured by convenience or recognition. It is measured by courage. It is measured by willingness to endure discomfort, face fear, and act with integrity. And this is where most people fail to understand. They think kindness is soft, easy, or optional. They think it's about being polite, avoiding conflict, or staying safe. But the truth, true kindness is hard. It demands courage, persistence, and an unwavering commitment to doing what's right, even when no one is watching, even when it could cost you something valuable, even when it's inconvenient. That is the difference between ordinary people and those who leave a lasting impact. Think about it. Every time you shy away from discomfort, every time you choose safety over courage, you diminish your influence. You teach others that convenience is stronger than integrity, that fear is stronger than empathy. But every time you step into the uncomfortable, every time you act when it's risky, every time you choose courage over ease, you create influence that multiplies. Your actions become a model, a signal, a standard. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, your courage reshapes the environment around you. That is the power of real kindness, the kind that challenges, the kind that transforms, the kind that inspires. So here's the challenge for you today. Look at the moments in your life where you've chosen comfort over courage, where you've held back, where you've avoided the tension. Those are your opportunities. Those are the moments where your influence is waiting to be unlocked. True kindness isn't about perfection. It's about persistence. It's about choosing the hard path again and again, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it's inconvenient, even when it's risky. That is the gateway to impact, influence, and transformation. And in the next final section, I'll bring it all together, showing how embracing uncomfortable kindness not only shapes lives, but creates a legacy that can never be erased, leaving a blueprint for anyone willing to take the courageous path. Now we arrive at the final lesson. Imagine the impact if everyone chose discomfort over convenience, courage over fear, action over indifference. Imagine a world where people didn't just talk about kindness, but lived it in its most challenging, raw, and transformative form. That's the kind of world we can create, one act at a time, one courageous choice at a time. Because true kindness is not easy, it is not polite, it is not always recognized, but it is unstoppable, it is transformative, and it leaves a legacy that no award, no accolade, no recognition could ever match. Here's what it comes down to: every moment of discomfort you face is an opportunity to influence, to inspire, to change a life. The people who make a difference in this world are not those who waited for comfort. They are those who stepped into the hard moments, the messy moments, the moments most people avoid. They acted when it was inconvenient, when it was awkward, when it could cost them something. And that is why their actions mattered. That is why their kindness was unforgettable. That is why their influence multiplied. Think about the ripple effect. One brave act sparks another. One courageous choice influences a dozen others, and suddenly the world begins to shift not in a moment, but in ways that last generations. Every act of true, uncomfortable kindness builds a legacy that cannot be erased, a network of trust, loyalty, and integrity that strengthens everything it touches. And the best part, you don't need extraordinary power, fame, or resources to start. You only need courage. The courage to act, to lean into discomfort, to be honest, to care, to step forward when it's hard. So here's the challenge I leave with you today. Notice the areas in your life where you are avoiding discomfort, where fear, pride, laziness, or convenience are guiding your actions. Lean into those moments. Act with courage. Speak with honesty. Show empathy when it's difficult. Help when it's inconvenient. That is where true kindness is born. That is where real impact happens. That is where your legacy begins. And remember this: each time you embrace the hard path, each time you act with courage, each time you choose real kindness over ease, you are changing more than a moment. You are changing a life, inspiring others, and building a world that reflects the highest version of what it means to be human. Step into the discomfort. Lead with kindness. Transform the world.